Until this season, Javier Baez had 3 straight years of underwhelming performance. After signing a huge contract to come to Detroit, and supposedly being part of the revitalization process of the Detroit Tigers, expecting to become the face of the franchise, Javy proved that every red flag of his game was true. Bad plate discipline, streaky power, high strikeout rate, but at least he would always make highlight plays on defense. And out of all the bad years, 2024 was the worst of them all. And to make things worse, once Javy got hurt is right when the Tigers turned things around to make the playoffs in one of the most improbable playoff runs ever. At that point, it looked like Javy was a huge reason the Tigers weren't reaching their full potential, dragging the whole team down with him. So going into this year, most people wanted Javy gone more than they did before. They didn't want him to mess up the chemistry and take at-bats away from a younger, better player. But then something crazy happened. After years of a low batting average and high strikeout rates, Javier Baez started playing like he was in his prime again. Not only did he start swinging the bat good, but he also became a great center fielder of all things, playing center field with a flair that only Javier Baez can play with. And during that time, the Detroit Tigers are the best team in Major League Baseball. So how in the world does this happen? How does a guy go from one of the worst offensive players in the majors for 3 straight years to an all-star level bat with Gold Glove level play in both the infield and the outfield? First is the theory that Javier Baez only turns into a superhero when the lights are at their brightest. This year only further proves that. The past 3 years that Javy played was for a bottom-feeding Tigers team. His play reflected just how bad those years were. Then this year, after he watches the Tigers make a run in the playoffs, he suddenly turns into all-star level Javier Baez again. With other players around him playing very well, and even his own teammate Spencer Torkelson making a comeback of his own, of course Javier Baez just suddenly realizes that he can play baseball too. In my video I made back in 2023, I made the case that Javy was having problems mentally, and that was the cause of his bad play offensively. He also has always had great splits when batting with runners in scoring position. The great thing is now that the Tigers are good, we have a guy who lives to be up to bat in the bottom of the 9th with the game on the line. Javy has been playing like this for half of the season now, so it's not like this is a fluke where it could all go up in smoke at any moment. Also, AJ Hinch has not moved Javy up in the order since the start of the year. Look at any Tigers lineup card, and despite being one of the best bats, he's still batting 7th or 8th. Most managers would have moved Javier Baez up in the order once he started to play better. But I do like that AJ Hinch kept Javy later in the order, not just from a superstitious standpoint, but from an actual baseball standpoint. Even when Javy was struggling from 2022 to 2024, he was great when batting with runners in scoring position. In 2022, he had an average of .296 and a .336 on base percentage. In 2023, he batted .312 with a .361 on base percentage. But it would make sense if in 2024, the worst year of his career, that he took a step back. There's no way that he kept up that kind of production with runners in scoring position when he was one of the worst offensive players in Major League Baseball. So, what exactly were his stats? Well, he had a .308 average, a .314 on base percentage, and half of his home runs that year came with runners in scoring position. And then of course this year, Javier Baez has great numbers with runners in scoring position again. So having Javy later in the order puts him in a better position to make plays in my opinion, and also I think in AJ Hinch's opinion, and that's why he's keeping him later in the order. But these stats, plus how he's played this year, is why I really buy into the idea that Javier Baez likes the big stage and will play his best baseball in the big moments. While Javy is not a perfect offensive player, he still strikes out a lot, he doesn't walk very often. That's kind of always been part of his game, so I'm not mad at it. I'm just glad that he is producing once again. I don't care how. Another big part of his revival is Gleyber Torres. Gleyber has shared old scouting reports with Javy to show him what other teams are looking at to try and get him out. Along with that, he has been talking through at-bats with Javy and giving him advice, and I'm sure watching plenty of film. I'm not sure exactly what it is that Gleyber is saying that could be different from what Tiger coaches have been saying for years, but whatever it is has helped tremendously. Maybe Javy trusts Gleyber more than our coaches, or what Gleyber says means more because him and Javy have a great relationship. I don't know, but I'm glad it's working. So not only will Gleyber Torres on his own be an all-star this year, but he has also helped revive the career of Javier Báez, producing another all-star. So he might be one of our best free agent signings in team history. Something that is important to note is the mentality that Javier Báez had coming into this year. After 2024, it would have been very easy for Javy to be bitter, angry, and jealous. You spend 3 years struggling at the plate, giving your all on defense, and right as you get hurt is when your team finally puts things together. You have reported early to spring training the past few years to work on your bat, and nothing has helped. You're exiting what is supposed to be your prime years, and the Tigers farm system has young, hungry players ready to take your spot. Every single sign is pointing to this being the end, with a really bad and ugly final act. Javy has every reason to give up and phone in this season until he's traded or DFA'd. But instead of being angry and upset and just quitting on himself, Javy and AJ Hinch talk about what role Javier Baez is going to have on the 2025 Detroit Tigers. Javy is excited instead of being offended when asked to play new positions. He's okay with becoming a utility player. He doesn't mind coming off the bench. Javy is okay with taking a back seat if it helps the Detroit Tigers win baseball games. Having the openness to do something like that, as a guy who at one point was one of baseball's biggest stars, is probably why Javy is playing like he is. Baseball has a sense of humor. So of course when Javy accepts his role as a utility player, who mostly brings value by playing great defense at multiple positions, finally giving up any hope that his bat would ever return to what it once was, after years of trying to make it return to what it once was, is exactly when he earns his starting spot back and starts swinging the bat good again. You just can't make this stuff up. Not even a Hollywood script writer would come up with something like this. But it's just another part of this year and what makes this Tigers team so special. Javier Baez playing the role of a scrappy underdog who has nothing to lose, while the young gritty Tigers fight with the big money LA Dodgers for the best record in Major League Baseball. I can't wait to see how the rest of this season pans out for the Detroit Tigers and Javier Baez. Hopefully we see a storybook ending to what has been a fairy tale season. Now if you guys have watched this channel for long enough, you know I love stupid, sappy comeback stories that are emotionally driven and all that type of stuff. And you know, of course I would like something like that. I'm someone that, you know, the more emotionally driven a video is, the more stupid and unbelievable the story is, the better the video is, the better the content is. So of course I love that type of stuff. But this Javier Baez story is just something that I've never seen before. I mean, even I, somebody who was supporting Javier Baez, and even last year I was still kind of sticking with Javier Baez. I was never the type of person to just go out there and just start hating on him. I did say a few bad things about him, you know. Why in the world are you swinging at that pitch? That's a horrible decision, Javy. Why would you do that? You know, that type of stuff. But I still stuck by him and I still wanted to see him succeed, and I still thought that he had the physical capabilities to be a good baseball player. It was all just mental. So finally seeing that realized and seeing what he's done this year, it's just been amazing. I have loved every single second of it. I'm glad that he's back to being what he used to be. It's the closest thing we have to Cubs Javier Baez again. And it's probably what the franchise, it's probably what the Detroit Tigers envisioned when they first signed Javier Baez to that contract back in 2022. So it's nice to see that finally realized, and he's finally living up to the contract and all the hype. It took a while, but it's finally there. We're finally here. People are no longer hating on Javier Baez. We don't have to have think pieces anymore about Javier Baez. We don't have to hear about how bad he's playing anymore. Javier Baez is back to being Javier Baez, and that's great. And what better time for him to come back to being prime Javier Baez than when the Detroit Tigers are trading blows with the LA Dodgers to be the best team in Major League Baseball. It is picture perfect. It is Hollywood script writing. There's going to be a 30 for 30 made about this team. I can already feel it. It's just beautiful. You'll love to see it. And I'm sure that throughout this year there are going to be more videos made on the Detroit Tigers, just because, you know, there are certain teams that there's just so much content. There's so many stories. There are so many players that you can make videos on, and this is just one of those. But anyways, I'm Limitless Pulse. I'll catch y'all next time.
What you get the mix right, nigga, put it in the blender. Hell yeah, I'm stop. Jump on a chicken tender. It's like a beef with energy and water like Kimber. Hey, turtle looking like dinner. It's like I got the bag, boy or girl.